Is Halo Infinite as good as people are making it out to be? I'll tell you what, guys, you cannot talk badly about Halo to a bunch of Halo fans, right? This is like the messiah of video games to the Halo community. And listen, I come from the Halo community. I grew up playing all the Halos. I lived and breathed everything Master Chief and Spartan related. I watched the series. I read the books. I even bought Dr. Halsey's diary, which was actually not bad. At the time, Bungie was still steering the ship, but to be honest with you, I kind of fell off with Halo around Halo 4. Now, I actually did enjoy Halo 4's multiplayer. I didn't think it was that bad. I thought it was pretty neat how they were going for loadouts, but the campaign itself kind of lost me. It didn't have the magic that I felt like Halo 2 was building up to. Halo 3 just blew it out of the water, and then Halo Reach was just like that final send-off, right? God, I've played that campaign so much. But at this point in this particular review, we're not talking about campaigns because Halo Infinite's campaign is not out yet. I haven't got to play it. I know there's some people that have access to it already. I think SkillUp has access to it. Feel free to go check that out. Today, though, I am going to be talking about its multiplayer, and I have played all the Halo multiplayers. I often tell this story to our streams over on Twitch, where I was a freshman in college, working a student job, came home for lunch, started playing Halo 3, looked at my buddy and was like, man, I really don't want to go back to work. To which he replied, dude, like, don't. We could just play Halo 3 all day. And so we did. Not exactly a good example for my son, but that afternoon may have went down as one of the best gaming sessions of all times. And of course, soon after that, Halo Reach came out, which a lot of people disliked. And let me just let you know up front, I disliked Halo Reach. From the very beginning, I was like, yo, this is garbage. What are these abilities? What is happening? This isn't Halo. This isn't what Halo's supposed to be. And then next thing I know it, Halo 3 felt kind of outdated. I know. Some of you right now are like, yo, take that back. But that is what makes a Halo game more successful than its predecessor, is as you begin to play it, you suddenly realize, wow, this experience feels next gen, different, new, vibrant. And you suddenly find yourself instinctively loading up that new Halo game instead of the old. Now, the problem with this is that I didn't play as much Halo 5 as I did both Halo 4 and Halo 3 and Halo Reach. Around Halo 5 is when things started to dip off for me. So a lot of the point of references that I'm making today won't necessarily be to Halo 5, which that's what it's supposed to be. I did play some Halo 5, but not extensively. However, the games that I have played here recently, and on PC especially, is both Halo Reach and Halo 3, both of which came out pretty unpolished, but over time have gotten better. The question is, does Halo Infinite multiplayer give us an experience that makes us want to forget every other Halo before? Aesthetically, Halo Infinite is beautiful. I find the colors to be vibrant. I find the maps to be well thought out, although not many different maps. Seems limited, but I'm sure more maps will be added. I find, at least on the surface, Halo does appear to be a next-gen experience at first glance. And even when playing, I talked about it during the flight test, how much I enjoyed playing Halo, that it even feels like a next-gen experience. But again, that was against bots. That was just the flight test. And although I was praising it, there was only so much that I could tell from that one playtest. Halo Infinite, after playing a number of hours in it now, playing regular quick play, some big team battle here and there, and a ton of ranked, I'm gonna go ahead and just level with you. You're gonna get two gaming experiences. If you play with the controller, this is a fantastic game. And I'm not trying to spark this like input shaming controller versus mouse and keyboard. I'm just trying to level with you that controller feels phenomenal. And as someone who had an Xbox 360, played all the Halos, even the original Xbox, was a console player for years, and even today I'm still a console player, but I also have a PC, and I tend to play majority of my games on PC now. When picking up this game and just playing with the controller, I love it. Dude, I can just play back-to-back games no problem. Win or lose. Picking up a controller is like riding a bike, right? But it's different than that with Halo Infinite. It feels good. It feels responsive. And after talking with a couple clanmates yesterday, there's actually ways you can overclock your controller, which makes Halo Infinite feel even better on PC. Now, I don't know how it is on console. I've not played Halo Infinite on Xbox, but so far on PC with the controller feels very, very good. Not all the weapons, but noticeably the BR and a number of like the power weapons feel especially good with controller. You can tell that 343 really took a lot of time to polish the game for my controller input players, and rightfully so. This was originally a console game, with the majority of the player base being controller players. And so far, at least from what I've experienced when playing with the controller, is that everything feels very responsive, very good, very snappy, fluid. And if you ever get around to overclocking your controller on PC, guys, it gets even better. And there's all kinds of settings too. Dead zones, you can adjust all that. Look acceleration, although I don't normally like to mess with that one, but there's a ton ton of different settings to truly sit down and customize how responsive and how fluid you want your controller to feel. All of this allowing your controller and your joysticks to react immediately with every single micro move that you make. And I know there are other games that have this level of detail in their settings when it comes to controllers. All I'm saying is that Halo Infinite seems to kick it up a notch. And overall, it feels good on controller. It's satisfying, it's classic, getting in those duels, throwing a crouch in here and there if you like to play claw. I'm a bumper jumper boy myself. Some of my OG Halo players are like, yeah, this guy knows. And I know there's been some clips showing the aim assist, the bullet magnetism that occurs inside of Halo Infinite, where the reticle quite literally drags for people. But I've actually been told that this actually breaks the moment you move or the moment you shoot. Regardless, when playing Halo on controller, things feel good. Now, mouse and keyboard, I'm gonna be a little more harsh. And it's not because I think mouse and keyboard is worse than controller or that one is more skilled than the other. Honestly, I could care less. You know, a long time ago, I picked up mouse and keyboard when playing Anthem. Now, it had controller support, but it wasn't that good. So I picked up mouse and keyboard. And normally with every single game, considering I can go back and forth between the two, I will pick up whatever feels the best to me. In Destiny 2, mouse and keyboard on PC still feels the best to me, despite some weapons being much better for controller players. Shout out to Last Word. But for the most part, the fluidity that mouse and keyboard has inside of Destiny 2, it's just too good. The swapping between weapons, the minimum amount of input lag. Even though Bungie in Destiny 2 doesn't even support a pull rate above 1,000 for your mouse, it still feels very, very good. And that's kind of the benchmark here that I'm weighing it against. Where Halo Infinite sits for mouse and keyboard, it doesn't feel terrible, it just feels unpolished. Similar in some ways to how Halo Reach was when it first came to PC. Dude, like I rushed to download Halo Reach and play it immediately once it came to PC. I was so excited to see the frame rate and to experience the game with mouse and keyboard. And what I quickly realized was, wow, this feels like crap. And before people say it's because the game's not aiming for you, nah man, the things that make a game feel fluid for mouse and keyboard players is A, mobility. Now mobility in Halo is actually pretty good. The problem is, for mouse and keyboard players, it feels punishing. When coming in and out of a slide, I felt like I was at a huge disadvantage while on mouse and keyboard. It felt like something was like pulling my aim down. When jumping on mouse and keyboard, I might as well just go ahead and let myself die right there. Whereas on controller, I could hop around just fine. There seemed to be some sort of magical force recentering my reticle while playing mouse and keyboard and trying to be overly mobile, which goes against the whole reason why you would play mouse and keyboard to begin with. The ability to snap from one location to the next and to be as mobile as you could possibly be. And if you want to know if there's input lag or not, while playing on mouse and keyboard, just hit your sprint button, hit your shift button, and notice that there is a slight delay from which you hit that button and when you actually sprint. It's a delay, guys, and I don't know why. And it seems to be that way with a lot of things. There seems to be some level of unpolished and latency involved with mouse and keyboard. Now, granted, this could have been something that affected my controller as well, until of course I overclocked it. Regardless, in terms of responsiveness, I find that controller just feels way more responsive than mouse and keyboard, thus resulting in me having a different experience between the two different inputs. I only bring it up here, guys, because you have a whole slew of PC players playing Halo Infinite, and potentially some of them, it is their first Halo game ever. Now, for the most part, take Les, for instance. He loves Halo. He's loving the hell out of Halo Infinite. And maybe it's just me over here nitpicking. Regardless, it doesn't really bother me too much because, again, I don't mind jumping between two different inputs. If controller's really feeling that much better for me, I just play with a controller. I'm not gonna fight it. And if you're playing mouse and keyboard and you only want to play up against mouse and keyboard players, luckily inside of Ranked in the solo and duo playlists, you can lock your matchmaking to only mouse and keyboard players. I only bring all of this up though because I have seen some people complaining on PC. And I just want you to know that you're not crazy if you feel like the responsiveness on mouse and keyboard isn't as fluid as you may have experienced in other games. There's also a number of other things though within Halo that 343 themselves intentionally put in to slow the game down a little bit. And that's things like weapon swap, picking up weapons. Like you can't immediately pick up a weapon and shoot. There's like a small delay, especially like if you run out in the middle of the map and pick up a rocket launcher, there's a small delay there before you can pull the trigger and get it ready. This is intentional design by 343 and not necessarily a mouse or keyboard or input issue. Now, another intentional design is the recovery of your Spartan. Notice whenever you lose your shield, how long you're out of the gunfight. Now, some of my Destiny players, this pains you, especially for my guys that like to rock high recovery. Inside of Destiny 2, we have the ability to build craft as well as fluff our stats. And in doing so, we can actually manipulate our own recovery time. It's not the case here in Halo. And I noticed that overall, the recovery there is very, very slow. Although I've forgotten off the top of my head how long it took to recover your health back in previous Halos, most notably things like Halo 3. It feels a little bit longer there than what I remember. Some other complaints I've seen: grenades. Now, I will say the grenades overall don't necessarily seem super strong. They just have a really big blast radius. This can be annoying, especially if you're sitting there trying to recover and you're waiting for your shields to come back, and a frag grenade gets thrown and it looks like it's far away enough to not tag you, and it tags you just barely, and it keeps your health down. I don't remember grenades having this level of blast radius. Actually though, what I do remember is grenades actually having more lethality, but you had to place them more strategically. Now they seem extremely spammy, and I feel like I have so many gunfights just turn into grenade fights with the cleanup. And before someone says, well, that's the Halo magic. No, the Halo magic was precisely placing a grenade and then follow up with a shot, not just overwhelm your opponent with 20 freaking grenades, which seems to happen here a lot. And a lot of that is due to the fact that the overall meta inside of Halo is steamrolling. And by steamrolling, I mean literally taking you and your opponents, balling up and just steamrolling over the other team. Get the spawn flipped on them, split the spawns, and just keep collapsing enemy after enemy. If you play Destiny 2, this is very reminiscent of Trials of the 9 4v4, back when we used to have double primaries. The only thing to really break this up is, well, to throw grenades. But there's so many gunfights that you run into where it's like 1v2 or 3v1. And just reaching back to my Halo Reach roots, I feel like there was a lot more 1v1s. And even back in Halo 3, Halo Infinite, I just didn't feel like there was that many 1v1s. Everyone knows that the meta is to stay close to your teammates and snowball together. And inside of ranks, that's all you run into. And maybe a good frag grenade or a couple frag grenades can break that snowball up. But I mean, you come around the corner, you got a bunch of enemies looking at you with BRs. They're just gonna shred you. The other way to break up this snowball effect is the power weapons spread out around the map. And you've got a number of different power weapons. We did a video the other day testing a lot of these guns, seeing how they feel. You of course got the rocket launcher, you got a shotgun, you got energy swords, hammers, and a couple of other weapons that noticeably feel different on mouse and keyboard and controller. And when I say noticeably, they go from feeling like poop on one input to crazy good on another. I would say for the most part, inside of rank though, all the power weapons that are present feel pretty good between both input devices. And overall, the power weapons do a really good job of breaking up that snowball effect. However, the snowballers, if they get it down, they get you on that split spawn in whatever game mode, whether it's oddball, control, or even just Slayer. Once they start to snowball effectively, they pretty much have all power weapons unlocked, which just results in them snowballing even more effectively. Maybe that's just the reality of it. All I'm saying is I'm getting some major Trials of the 9 vibes. And for my guys that never played Destiny 2 or don't even know what that is, it was just a game mode back inside of Destiny 2 that was not well received due to the meta essentially being players running together and holding hands constantly. I don't remember that being the case as much in the previous Halos. I remember going off and finding myself in a duel. I remember putting down a well-placed grenade to follow up with the cleanup shot and then clutching up an energy sword to then follow up with a double kill afterwards. There were many times in Reach and other Halos where we broke away from the pack and played as individuals and had those hero moments. Halo Infinite, from my experience, is a lot of nut hugging, a ton of it. And if you're not about that, then you're not gonna like this Halo. Now, outside of power weapons, 343 do have abilities around the map that you can pick up. One being a grapple hook, which is actually really fun. You can do all kinds of mobility stunts with it, maneuver yourself around the map. There's also things like invisibility and overshields. You even got this propulsion force, which can push enemies back. You can even do shenanigans like push yourself up, allowing you to get some more vertical ground on enemies. There's also a barricade, which is, to me, the weaker of the abilities. Now, are these abilities IP defining? Yes, we're using that word right there. Well, IP defining abilities for me were things like the bubble that you could throw down. Like, do you remember the first time you threw one of those bubbles down? You backed into it with a sword or a shotgun and you just dared anyone to push it? Or like the regeneration field. Those are some very memorable abilities. And then when we even look beyond that, Halo Reach with things like armor lock. Now granted, were those things busted? Yeah, they were busted. Or at least armor lock was busted when it first launched. But it was fun. But you could tell right off the bat that Halo Infinite is trying to be a competitive game. But to be quite honest with you, I haven't necessarily been that impressed with Halo's servers or tick rate. Like, I don't know what the tick rate is, but there were many times I traded with opponents. So it's like, yeah, we're doing all these things to make the game more competitive, lengthier time to kill values, diminished power weapon lethality, lackluster abilities. But in my opinion, it just makes for a boring experience. Now, I know this goes against what many of the people are saying. There's so many people saying this is the best Halo ever made. This is the best multiplayer ever created. Halo is now front and center, back on top again. And as much as I want to agree with that, my experience with the multiplayer overall flaw is that, to me, it lacks those individual moments, and a lot of the gunfights, maybe due to the time to kill being a little lengthier, just kind of results in you killing your enemy by death of 1,000 cuts. Let me throw a grenade. Let me get a burst of a BR in there, or a couple shots of an AR. Let me throw one more grenade. And they also nerfed the melee range, which has really thrown me off, but I'm getting somewhat used to it now. But I've been meleeing at the same range inside of all the Halo games now for years. But if you try to do that now, you're just going to sit there whiffing at air. So that is something you got to get used to. But no, Halo Infinite, for me, my personal opinion, looks on the surface like a next-gen experience, but it won't keep me. It just won't, guys. I hate to say that, man. I hate to say that. This goes against what everyone else is saying about this game, but it lacks hero moments. And yeah, you can get those triple and quad kills. There are those moments here and there, and they're great, but there's a lot of times that you got your team behind you that's having to pump shots into the enemy. So my personal opinion, I actually think that frag grenades should have the radius diminished, where you have to place them way more precisely. Time to kill might need to be dropped down just a tad bit, as in sped up just slightly. And overall mouse and keyboard inputs need to be polished more. There's something happening there, whether it's input lag. A lot of it you could just tell just wasn't tuned with every weapon in mind. It was like they spent some time with the battle rifle, the assault rifle and stuff, and then some of the power weapons, man, you could just tell they were just not tuned with mouse and keyboard in mind at all. And look, this is understandable. 343, they're ex-Bungie guys. They're used to making console games. Bungie was the same way, which is exactly why Bungie, when they brought Destiny 2 to PC, got vicarious visions to make the PC version of Destiny 2, which thank God they did. I know a lot of things here 343 did in-house, and I don't doubt their skills. I'm just saying from a player's perspective, from my perspective, the game just doesn't feel as polished for mouse and keyboard players. I enjoyed it on controller. It felt good on controller. As far as the hero moments, they're there. You got to work really hard for them, but they're there. But the meta quickly turns into how well do you snowball with your teammates. And that's a multiplayer experience that I really have never enjoyed. And I don't enjoy it here with Halo either. Guys, that's my thoughts. Let me know in the comments below what you think. Fellas and ladies, thank you so much for coming and watching. And as always,
slap that like button like your mama told you right.